more step along the world I go. One more step along the world I go. From the old things to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. Round the corners of the world I'd turn, more and more about the world I learn, and that new things that I see, you'll be looking at along with me. And it's from the old I travel to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. Give me courage when the world is rough, keep me loving though this world is tough. Leap and singing all I do, just keep me traveling along with you. And it's from the old I travel to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. You are older than the world can be, you are younger than the life in me, ever old and ever new, just keep me traveling along with you. And it's from the old I travel to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. Just keep me traveling along with you. Just keep me traveling along with you. Just keep me traveling along with you.
Good morning, everybody. Ravenbank School. Working together. Thank you. Today's assembly is all about challenges. And I can remember many years ago when I had some challenges of my own. It all started when I was reading a newspaper. And in that newspaper, there was a picture of two divers. And the divers had wetsuits on, they had tanks on their back, and they were diving in crystal blue waters. And I remember thinking, I'd love to do that. So I read the newspaper and I found a phone number where you could ring and learn how to dive. So I rang up and I ended up going to a local swimming pool. You had to go to a swimming pool, you couldn't go straight into the sea. And that's where I learnt to dive. One of the first things they did was to see what my swimming was like, which was okay. And then they asked me to do a duck dive. And I didn't really know what a duck dive was. So I had to ask them what I had to do. And basically a duck dive is where you put your head in the water, you go straight down to the bottom, your feet go up and your bottom goes up in the air too. Well, I hadn't really got my face wet before because I used to swim using breaststroke. And I used to swim along the water and keep my head up high. So I didn't really get my face wet. So I had a bit of a challenge trying to get my face wet and to learn how to do a duck dive. But step by step, I got there. And I'm pretty good at duck dives now. In my story this morning, there is somebody else who faces a challenge. I'll share the first part with you. Let's see if you can work out what the challenge is.
Ah, summertime. School was out and Mojo was living large. Until one day, when Katie stopped by with some great news. Mojo, the pool is open, she said. Mojo loved the community pool. Floating blissfully with his friends, he would wonder, is there anything better than this? No, of course there wasn't. Until one day, suddenly, there was. Where last summer there had only been one diving board, management was now adding 2 brand new diving boards. a small fun-sized board, and a spectacular death-defying high dive. Mojo strode boldly to the high dive. It looked even taller from up close, but never mind. He began the long climb to the top. All eyes were on Mojo. But when he arrived at the top, something was different. The water that looked so inviting earlier now looked as solid and hard as concrete. A faint voice from below.
Move it, kid. There's a line down here.
But Mojo was frozen in place. Finally, he inched himself back down the ladder, back to safety. Scary up there, huh? Said Katie. Come on, let's do the small board. That's okay, said Mojo. I'm gonna go warm up in the shallow end. And so Mojo sat in the shallow end, defeated. Every so often, a friend would stop by and say,
Mojo, have you checked out the new diving board? Come on!
But every time Mojo so much as looked at that end of the pool, all he could think about was the paralyzing fear up on the high dive. Is Mojo doomed to spend the rest of the summer in the shallow end with the babies? Or can he conquer his fear? What do you think? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
I wonder if he's going to be able to achieve his challenge of diving off the bigger diving board. We'll have to wait and see. I said I'd tell you a little bit more about my other diving challenges. My next diving challenge was actually to dive in the sea. I learnt how to dive pretty well in the swimming pool, but then I had to go into the sea to do my diving. And that was a little bit scary. So what the instructor did, he took us to the beach and we used to walk from the sand into the sea very slowly, and the sea got higher and higher and higher until it covered our heads and our faces, and then we eventually were diving actually in the seawater. And I got better and better at that, so I was really pleased with myself. I wonder in the story whether the character is able to get better at his challenge. Let's see the second part of the story and see what happens.
Last time, Mojo got scared while trying to go off the high dive, but he quickly resolved to conquer his fear. Okay, he said, you want to dance? Let's dance. The question you have to ask yourself is, do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Plank? But even thinking about getting back on the high dive made Mojo freeze with fear. And he decided maybe he would have more fun at home. And at home he stayed. Until one day, when Katie stopped by. Why haven't you been at the pool? She said. Psh, the pool. Who needs it? Said Mojo. I'm having more fun right here. Still scared of the high dive, huh? Terrified, said Mojo. You have to help me, Katie. All I want is to bathe in that sweet, cooling blue refreshment. Well, there is something we could try, said Katie. Anything! Okay, said Katie. So you're too scared to go back to the pool. But could you look at this picture of a pool? Ah! Take it away, said Mojo. Okay. What about now? Said Katie, moving further away. Further back, said Mojo. Further, further. Wait, is it further or farther? Okay, that's not so bad, said Mojo. What about now? Shouted Katie, taking a step forward. Okay, but just stay there, he said. Okay, said Katie. Just tell me when I can take another step forward. Mojo eventually calmed down. Katie took another step forward, then another. Eventually, Mojo was holding the picture of the pool in his hands. "You did it," said Katie. "Did what?" said Mojo. "We're supposed to be getting back to the diving boards, not looking at pictures." "That's what we're doing, silly. Look at all the progress you've made. I was all the way over there when we started." "Yeah, but that was easy," said Mojo. "Every step you took was so small." "Exactly," said Katie. "That's the beauty of the staircase strategy." "The what?" said Mojo. But just then, Katie had to go home for dinner, and Mojo was left to wonder. What did Katie mean by the staircase strategy? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
So in our video, the character hasn't quite managed to get off the diving board yet, but he's getting there step by step. So I've told you how I managed to do my duck dive. I've told you how I managed to get into the sea to do diving. My next challenge was actually to dive off a diving boat. And in order to do that, when you go diving, you have to sit at the edge of the boat and you have to roll backwards off the boat to get into the water. And that challenge I thought I would never be able to overcome. But like our character in the story, I had to step by step try to overcome my challenge. Let's see what happens in the story to see if he finally dives off the diving board.
The next day, Mojo summoned up the courage to go back to the pool. But the high dive still had the upper hand. Just then, he heard Katie. "Forget about the high dive for now. You'll get there eventually if you just keep taking small steps forward. That's the staircase strategy." "Oh, that's the staircase strategy," said Mojo. "Yeah, I don't get it." "Remember how you ate that giant cotton candy at the fair last year?" said Katie. "Best day of my life." "And remember when I said you couldn't do it?" "Of course I could do it. I just gotta keep taking bites." "Exactly," said Katie. "Big challenges can be scary. But there's a trick. You don't have to take on the big challenge all at once. You can break it up into teeny tiny steps. Then all you have to do is focus on the next step. Every time you take a step, you get braver. And when you get braver, you can take on even bigger challenges. But be careful. If you try to take steps that are too big, you might give up. But just make the steps smaller. Take enough small steps and you can do things that used to seem impossible." "Katie, you're a genius," said Mojo. Then he turned to the high dive. "I'm coming for you, big boy," he said. And Mojo kept taking steps, just like Katie said. Until, after many small steps, he found himself back atop the high dive. His heart pounded. His legs froze. But this time, something was different. He knew he didn't have to give up just because he was scared. All those small steps had made him braver. So instead of climbing back down to safety, he took one step toward the edge, then another, until finally there was only one more step to take. Now, what do you think? Have you ever conquered a big challenge by taking small steps? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
He managed it, didn't he? He managed to overcome the challenge of diving off that diving board. Now, as I told you, my challenge was actually to dive off the diving boat, doing a backward roll. And I have to tell you, I was able to overcome my challenge. In the next video, you will see Mrs. Greenwood and her family on holiday last year. And when we were on holiday, we went diving with my family, with my little boy Luke, who isn't that little, and my little girl Rebecca, who isn't that little, and we all went diving together. And if you look carefully on the left-hand side, you will see Mrs. Greenwood overcoming her challenge of doing a backward roll off the boat.
After 3. Cool?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go!
Every now and again we'll have a challenge to overcome. But just look at it by doing it step by step, and you will be able to overcome your challenges too. Until next time, bye.
One more step along the world I go. One more step along the world I go. From the old things to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. Round the corners of the world I'd turn, more and more about the world I learn, and that new things that I see, you'll be looking at along with me. And it's from the old I travel to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. Give me courage when the world is rough, keep me loving though this world is tough. Leap and sing in all I do, just keep me traveling along with you. And it's from the old I travel to the new, just keep me traveling along with you. You are older than the world can be. You are younger than the life in me. Ever old and ever new, just keep me traveling along with you. And it's from the old I travel to the